So today we are going to be discussing the elements of a script. But before we delve right in, what is a script? A script is a written text that contains all the directions for a film, be it the characters, the actions, the movements, the expressions, and so on. Now, something like this, a script, it guides the director, the producer, the production designer, the continuity person, everybody that would work on set, both the cast and crew. This is what guides them, the scripts. So we're going to be discussing the basic elements of a script and how you can perfect your art of script writing. Now let's cut right through the chase and delve right in. The first thing you will see on a script is fade in. This opening transition is very significant for editors. They like it, they use it. You know, when the opening roll, when you want to watch a film, the opening credits start rolling, then gradually you are eased into the first scene. The period between that the last roll and the easing into the opening scene is what we call fade in. But nowadays many script writers don't use it. They just feel that, okay, we just assume that the beginning of a film script is supposed to fade in. So a lot of persons don't use it again, but as per industry standards, I would say use it. Now the next thing you will see in a script is the slug line. The slug line comes at the beginning of every scene. It's written in caps and it comes at the beginning of every scene. So even if you're using one particular location, as long as there are different scenes, different movements, different actions in that location, it must come with a slug line. We don't want to assume that, okay, this is the same location, is the same time of day. We don't want to assume. Every scene must come with a slug line. Now, what does the slug line contains? The slug line contains the location and time a scene was shot. Now, let's take for instance, as we see this on the screen is a slug line. Interior, Voda's bedroom, day. Exterior, Voda's mansion, day. Interior / exterior, Voda's mansion, night. Now look at it very well, study it very well, and see how it is written. Interior, period, location, dash, time. Have you seen it? No need to start writing morning, afternoon, dawn, sunset, or whatever. No, every production has a budget, so we can't just be sitting around and be waiting for it to be 4 a.m. before we shoot, or waiting for it to be a sunrise. Except you can actually like make those periods of day come to life, like maybe you're using VFX or CGI, or maybe you have all the time in the world and all the money in the world to shoot that particular scene at that particular time that you're writing it. But if not, just day or night is okay. The production crew, they will figure it out. I know you may have seen this kind of slug line before in a script. Interior, Voda's mansion, continuous. Now this shows that there is an action in a preceding scene that we have to continue in a subsequent scene, but they are not like exactly in the same location. Not exactly the same location. Maybe probably this one was bedroom, this one will be outside the house, or this one was sitting room, this one will be in the toilet. That continuous is very beneficial for the editor, for the continuity, for production and post-production. Let me just put it that way, because when, let's take for instance, Voda drove in from outside and enters his mansion, you understand, and maybe the shirt he was wearing outside was blue and now it's white. It doesn't make sense. So if probably, because sometimes there is how production goes, so probably you're not shooting those two scenes the same day, or any other reason. That continuous has to be keenly observed, so that the character's costume, the character's accessories, any accessories that is on the character, his mannerism too. If he's angry, he continues in that anger. It's very good to give your viewers an immersive experience, so that you don't distract them when the character has a straight wig here and the person comes to the same day, the same time, and goes to the next room and is having a coily wig, and you'll be like, what's happening? What is happening? So continuous. If it's a story that you're telling and you want this action to continue in the next scene, just put continuous there. We would know that, okay, since it's continuous, the time of the day from the preceding scene also applies. The character. Who or what is the character? The character is the character. Don't mind me. The character is an individual or individuals who your story is centered on. Period. So the first time you introduce your character, we want to see it in caps. Whether they are the protagonists or antagonists or tertiary characters or foil characters, it is irrelevant. Anytime you introduce any character, introduce them in cap, and we want to see their age range, so that we don't cast a 50-something-year-old in a story of a youth. Is very, very important. And if it is essential to the particular story that you're writing, we want to see it, depending on your writing style too. We want to see a description of your character. Sometimes what they are wearing, depending on how you're setting up your story, depending on the story you're writing, how you're writing it, depending on how you want it to unravel. Now let's take a look at some of the ways we can introduce a character. This is the way I would introduce this first character. Voda, 24, stands at the edge of the cliff, expressionless. He fumbles in his pocket and brings out a locket. He opens it for one last time and looks at her icy eyes as he stares back at him. He heaves deeply. He throws the locket into the raging sea and watches the waters gobble it up. He exhales as a look of satisfaction dances across his brows. You see how this character was introduced? Just straight to the point. We introduced the character, the name of the character, the age of the character, and we went into the action that he has to perform in that particular scene. Straight to the point. Now let's look at another way we can introduce a character. Voda, 20, sits in his car, still in his gym clothes, sweaty. Chest heaves in rapid succession as though his muscles will rip the gym clothes at any moment. He opens the glove compartment of his car and brings out a silver revolver, which he tucks in his jean pocket. He starts his ignition and drives off in a rage. So we've seen this description is a bit visual. We've seen that, okay, we've seen the name of the character, we've seen the age of the character, we've seen that the character has to be muscular. So when the casting director is casting, he or she has to cast somebody that fits that description. And when we see he's sweaty, so when this scene is going to be shot, that person has to have sweat on his body. We've seen that, okay, there's a revolver, a silver revolver. It was very, very particular, a silver revolver. So we get a silver revolver. The props, the production designer and the props people, they will get a silver revolver. We see that he's seated in a car. That's where he is sitting. That is the location. And we see that, yes, he has to have a car key so that he can start his ignition and drive off in a range. And another thing about that is he has to be in a place, even as he's in the car is the location, he has to be in a place where he can drive off in a range. Maybe in front of the gate of a house or just on the road. We need to see that action. That is what we have set it out to be. You understand? So now let's look at another way that we can introduce more than one characters. Shola, 20s, a young lady with the body of a goddess, makes sexy moves on the dance floor as the other attendees watch. Isio, 20s, stands and looks around as he pulls out some wads of naira notes from his agbada. His eyes meet Voda's chilly stare. They hold each other's gaze for a bit. Isio takes back his seat as he stuffs the notes right back into his agbada. Now, an assignment for you. Who are the characters that we introduced? How can you describe the characters? What is the location? What do you think would be on set as this particular scene is being filmed? So if you know the answer, drop it in the comments below. I want to interact with you. So now, this, and this are what we call the action lines. The action lines, they contain the scene descriptions, the character movements, the character introduction, the sound, or any other thing that is necessary before we move into the dialogue. As we saw in the last scene that we just looked at, we saw that Shola was dancing. So which means in that particular scene there has to be music. You understand? So that is what the action lines contain. And the action line can be as brief as one paragraph, one short paragraph, or as lengthy as 2 pages. And when you are writing your action line, write it in form of a poem. Let every action come in a paragraph. Any action that you want the character or characters to play out, let it come in paragraphs, because it helps the production too. It helps them to know what is needed. It helps them to, it also helps the director to know, okay, the camera angles. Yes, sometimes a particular scene, action line or description can take more than a number of camera angles. Now when you write the action lines, please let it be very visual. We don't want to see, okay, he was crying inside his heart, so he now took the gun. We don't know. In this particular scene, we don't know what he's feeling. We don't know if it is anger. We don't know if he has a mental problem. We don't know, maybe something somewhere is remoting him to act that way. We don't know. Sure, you understand? So your action line has to be very visual. Show. Movie is about showing. So show and show. Let it be very, very visual. Write what we can see. We don't know what the character is thinking in his or her head. If it is something that the character is thinking in his or her head, do it in a way that we can visualize or hear it. You understand? Write it in a way that we can see or hear it. We don't know the internal struggles of the character if they don't play it out. You get? So film or movies is about showing. Show, don't tell. Please don't use camera angles in your script. I know in the previous video that I made, I put some links on some sites where you can see some scripts, read some scripts, study them to help you also understand the writing styles of other script writers, especially accomplished, professional and award-winning script writers. But those scripts you saw on those sites are actually what we call shooting scripts. In this kind of scripts, the director's input is there, the production designer's input is there, every other person that is production and pre-production is there. The cinematographer's inputs, they are there. So they are the ones that know, okay, this will be a tracking shot, this will be a master shot, okay, this particular scene we'll put it in high angle, low angle, okay, no, this one let's just do it a 3-shot wide angle. Please don't write camera angles in your scripts. Leave that for the production team. Any script that you see that has camera angles, just know that it has undergone an intensive script conference and it is a production script, a shooting script, not a speculative script that you are supposed to produce. And something you may have noticed in what I've just shown you is that we wrote in the present tense. That is the language of script writing. You write your actions, you write it in the present tense. Everything you write them in the present tense. Don't use past tenses or in your scripts, and use verbs a lot. Use evocative verbs, verbs that will make it visual to the reader, visual to everybody that would work on the script, even visual to the actor. Now, in the next video, I'm going to be talking about dialogues. Everything about dialogues. I don't care how lengthy it's going to be, but I want it to be the best video on dialogues in script writing that you would ever get anywhere on the internet.